Welcome back to the belonging place. I'm going to start this a little bit different today. I've been thinking a lot about what the purpose of the belonging place is and a little bit like what the guests that I brought on here. And I usually say that we're talking about how connection and belonging is the antidote to loneliness and addiction. And while I believe that, one of the things that I feel pretty strongly is the importance of people's story and that every story matters and that every story is unique. And that I think one of the purposes that I'm realizing about the belonging place is that in everybody's story, there are opportunities to glean connection and belonging, and the opposite of that, and how that informs the way that you tell your story and how you live your life. So, welcome. And I'm really excited for my friend and guest,
John Moore. I didn't know
John
if
Moore.
I was
Yeah.
supposed to. Okay, John Moore.
Welcome,
There we go.
welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks
Um,
for having me.
I'm excited. So we're just gonna start off by having you introduce yourself. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about you.
I'm never good at these. It's like okay, well,
Okay.
on a cold day in September, 1991, I was born. No, I
Youngest
won't
of
go there.
10 kids.
Oh yeah, youngest of 10. Um, just an amazing childhood. Loved my family, being the baby. I wasn't actually going to go in that detail, but then you just
That's okay.
it's your fault. You
You can
started it.
come back up higher level.
Yeah.
Tell us about you.
So fast forward, growing up in Colorado, married a girl from Heber City, Utah, Kylee, who's my wife,
We love her.
and I love
Love
her.
you, Kylee.
She's amazing. Love you, Kylee. And we have 5 kids together, and a girl, and then 4 boys.
And the oldest is how old?
She's 9,
And the youngest is
9 months.
yeah, so
Yeah,
cute.
so big range.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a madhouse. It's an absolute madhouse with a girl and then 4 boys, and it's so fun, but it's also shocking on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That's a little bit about my family. I have a background, like career-wise. I come from the creative field. So I started in graphic design and photography and video type stuff, emphasis on graphic design and branding. And I love creating brands and branding, especially the visual identity and the marketing strategy. But I love design. So my career has been in that, which led to more of a creative director path where I'm leading teams in content creation for social media and graphic design and photography, video, all of the brand elements that you see. That was my bread and butter. And then one day I decided to that I was in a marketing director role, and I realized that I needed to take a step back from life as is and get my hands dirty. So I left my job to become an entrepreneur because I was tired of staring at a computer screen for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that's the short condensed
And
version.
then
And
you
then
became an entrepreneur doing what?
yeah, yeah, that's a good question. So literally getting my hands dirty.
Yeah.
I started a branding and mural
This
business,
is my favorite thing.
and which has
So talented.
heavily focused on murals. So I do design work as well, contracted design work, but I also do commissioned murals. So been able to do lots of murals for lots of
And
Utah
you recently
companies
won a
here.
big contest, didn't
Oh
you?
yeah,
In Hebrew?
yeah, and Heber. So
Okay.
this week I'm starting after months of back and forth of for Smiths.
Okay.
It's going to be their flagship store. It's humongous. I mean,
You're doing it on the building,
so
or you're
it's
doing
on
it.
the entrance. So
Okay.
when you walk in, and you'll be able to see it from
Oh,
the
I'm gonna
street
come.
because
Yeah.
there's a big window. But yeah, so that was exciting. That was an
Is
exciting.
this your biggest project or?
It's probably tied for it, but
Okay.
not the most difficult.
Okay.
I did a Heber. I won another one about a year and a half ago, and it was in Heber as
Okay.
well, and it was next to the Tabernacle across the street. It was about the same size, and it was huge, a big wall, but this one was stucco,
Oh.
and so to paint on stucco is like doing the mural 5 times
Yeah.
because you can't just get a straight line like on a normal wall because of the detail. You kind of have to like sponge it
Yikes.
in, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty. pretty complicated. So
Yeah.
that was a big project. It
So
was
you
fun though.
so you started doing murals,
Yep.
and you were kind of continuing with, and then you also
Yeah, which led to what has become uh, a, a passion project, which then turned into time-wise my full-time gig. I also do murals still,
yeah.
but spending most of my time and creative energy on the Here Brotherhood, spelled Heare. And the reason is because we're big into hearing, like listening, but also in being here and present.
Yeah.
And so we took both of those spellings. I'm here to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm here to listen. So
Is
it's
that
both
an
those
actual
spellings combined.
British spelling of here though?
Nope.
Is there no okay.
We just combine the spellings
I don't
of
know
both
if I
words.
told you this when you originally, because I feel so grateful. I was behind the scenes before you even launched.
Yes.
So when you originally told me this, I have a minor in linguistics. I don't know if you know this, but the
No.
linguistics nerd in me was like, oh, I love this so much. I mean, I'm passionate about listening and the power of listening,
Yes.
being present, but the word here, HERE, like I'm here for you and here, and to combine them, I just brilliant.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
So I already love you as a person, but I was like, this is great. We're gonna talk a little bit more about
Yes.
here later, but
Because it very much applies, yes, to what you're talking about.
if I were to take away all those things,
Okay. Ooh.
everything that you just said about you, and we're like, we start this again, and I say, hey John, tell me about you. What would your answer be?
Wow, what a question. Um, I feel like I need more specifics, but but I know that's part of
That's
the
it.
reason.
Yeah.
I know.
You don't get to say
Like
any of
what,
the things.
career, family? I know
Yeah.
what
You
you're
don't get
doing
to
here.
say any of the
Yeah.
things that you've produced or that are your accolades or in your that you have arrived at. I want you to what would you say who you are and you're becoming?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind is about intention.
Okay.
If I could tell you about who I am, yeah, I would say that I'm a messy person, but one that is messy because I think life is more fun that way.
Okay.
I would tell you that I have good intentions, that I really do love people, and I want to serve and help people. That's really, and that sounds so cliche and so like baseline, but it's
Sounds
like,
so you.
yeah, but I genuinely love being with people. I love sitting with people. I love talking to people, most of the time.
Yeah.
I need breaks too,
Yeah.
but
At
just
your
I
core,
love,
you're a people
yes,
person.
yes.
Yeah.
I love people. I love learning.
Mm.
Um, I love I love learning new things. I love new music. I'm a very shiny object person, or I can be, at least in my interests. I'm learning not to be in business, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not as responsible. But in my life, I do like, I love
Novelty.
new music. I love new ideas and learning what people are learning new in their life. Even if it's something that I already know, like somebody learning something new is so exciting to me. Like watching my kids figure something out or like have a breakthrough for themselves
Yeah.
is so fun for me because I get to be in it with them. I know this is going all over the place, but I told you
No.
I was messy,
Yeah.
so you should have expected it. No, I love life, and I love the people around me, and I
Yeah.
want to serve people and have fun. I love having fun.
Yeah. The reason why I want to ask people this is that I think a lot of us define ourselves by what we do
Yeah.
and not who we are, right? I think it's harder for us to think like, who am I at the core of that? You did great.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong about that.
It's so funny. I recently had Mark America Smith, if you know him on LinkedIn. I recently had him on our podcast, and I've been wanting. Somebody recently asked me, instead of saying, "Tell me what you do. What do you
Yeah.
do for work?"
Yeah.
They said, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And that's a really jarring question to start with, but I loved it, and so I tried it the other day on Mark, and he's like, "What kind of question is that?" Like that's not a place to start.
Yeah.
He was joking, but it is funny. We're so not used to that question because it's all about our accolades and what do you do for work?
Yeah.
Because it's just such an easy
It kind of
question.
arms us.
Yes.
All the things around me, it's pretty vulnerable to say,
Yes.
here's what I am without all those things,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and it's so easy to answer you asking that question because you've created a belonging place. I don't mean to be so cheesy, but you've created a safe space for me in the past, and so I know I can be. It's
Open
easy
to
for
that.
me to answer that.
Yeah.
Whereas others, I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
You know, all the surface level, easy answers. But
Yeah. Well, I
um,
loved your answer. And if you think later, if you want to add, like, open door to add to that, my next question is, do you remember our meet cute? Like our, when we, the
me
first
too.
time we met and like really talked and
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
beginning of, because I mean, we've known of each other for
yeah.
years. I'm friends
I
with
was
your
gonna say you. I
brothers,
feel
but
like you were always helping at one of Joseph's events, or always
yeah,
like.
but for us, do you
Yes,
remember?
yes.
Okay.
So I'd met you,
Okay.
and you were always present, but I was like, I never sat down to talk to you, you know.
Okay.
Um, but it was when we were in line for I think Joseph Kaysen and Garen's concert at the Velour,
Yeah.
and we were in line together or something, and I think you turned around and started talking. I'm like, yeah, we do need to officially talk and meet, and that was actually when I was considering leaving my job.
Yeah.
So this is what 2022. Where are we? Yeah, the beginning of 2022, and we had a really great conversation at that point, and I felt very good and very hopeful after talking to you.
And here didn't exist. And it's interesting to me in
It
our
was still like a
friendship.
year and a half out ish.
It's interesting in to me in your friendship because I, as a therapist, I believe very strongly in change and that opportunities come and go as well as people come in our lives and they go, and that a lot of the conflict that people encounter is when they get in the way of that, when they hold people too long
Hmm.
or let them go too fast, or when they're really safe in one door so they don't open another door. And it seems like that conversation we had outside of Valor was like an opening and a closing, like right there. You were like, well, I'm gonna quit this job and I'm gonna start doing murals. And it was fascinating to me. I was all about it. I was like, I love this for him, right? It's so scary, but I have a little entrepreneur spirit myself where I'm
Yeah.
just like, it's more exciting than it is scary. And like, you're super capable. And then looking back now on what, and so that's my next question. Standing in velour, talking about how you want to make change in your life. And here we are 2 years later. And if you like, yeah, this is a big question that I'm going to ask you, but what are some things that you gleaned
Hmm.
in that just stepping into the unknown?
Well, what a question. You know, it's funny. The other day, I was having a conversation with my wife,
Okay.
um, because of a friend who is talking about stepping out on their own.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's a good place to go because, and this isn't to make light of it, but it's funny to look back and think about I was worried about.
Mm.
Um, and one of them is insurance.
Yeah.
I've got 5 kids and a wife, and I'm like, and that's for a lot of people. It's like, well, I have to have a job because I have to have insurance, and so was always a big worry.
Yeah. Keeping you from,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's and I think that's true for most people. And before you realize, oh, it's actually there's other ways to get insurance, and yes, you have to pay out of pocket, but spoiler alert, you were paying out of pocket. Your employers were just taking it out.
Yeah.
So you like learn all of these things that, and I use that as a silly example, but it I think represents a lot of what we do as we're stepping into the unknown. We all of a sudden look at all these barriers to protect us, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we're just these faithless people. It's just that we are
You're like security.
hardwired. We're hardwired for
Yeah.
security, and we're hardwired for to know what's next. And so when I have a safe, secure job, then I know, at least, unless I'm laid off or something,
Yeah.
right? But I know that there's some security there. And so that's one example. But there's so many other things, um, that are represented by that,
Yeah.
of these little worries that stop us from moving forward in anything in life, but especially when we're making a big leap like leaving your job to do something on your own. It's a lot, and the biggest thing is for me at least was somebody having the the courage and the love to tell me that they thought that I could.
Yeah.
And that for me was so huge. And they showed me that I could too. And I'll shout out Kyle Bravey. He's one of my best friends and brothers forever. Um, the week that I left my job, it was a Monday. I we I terminated my employment, or I don't know how to say it, but I left my job. And in the next few days, I talked to Kyle. We met at a place and we just whiteboarded. And there were certain things that I was worried about. And he's like, it was nice to have his perspective and say, like, John, this isn't this isn't outside your wheelhouse. And he's not somebody to sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate his opinion
Straight up.
because he's telling me the truth. And so, but he saw things in me, and I really appreciated that. And I know I'm going a million different
No,
directions
you're
from your
good.
question, but that's one of the things that
He could reflect in you your capabilities
yeah,
and
he
blow in your
he
sales,
showed me,
right?
rather than like affirming me with maybe something that wasn't true, like here's an affirmation. He like showed me,
Yeah.
John, you can do this, and it's actually not that improbable.
Here's
It's
some
actually pretty
evidence that I know
probable.
in your life that, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so he talked me through that, and it was so helpful. And at the same time, I had other people that were, they were, friends and coaches, that had gotten me to do a cold plunge. I resisted for a long time, and but I finally gave in, and I went into the Provo River, and it was freezing. But through that, they taught me that my mind was more powerful than I gave it credit for, and that I am the author of my own story. And a lot of those things, all those things were so helpful for me to wake up from my existence, or
Yeah.
maybe non-existence, right, in my mind. And there's a lot of backstory to that, right? There's some mental health struggles there. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of like things that were coming down on me that made me feel like I wasn't capable.
Mm.
That made me feel like
You
I
mean like life?
yeah,
Social
we could
media.
put it, we could call it that, sure. But all these things piled up, and it was so nice to have people that surrounded me that not only saw me as I was, but also as I could be, and helped me to get out of my rut, helped me to
Yeah.
get out of my own head, and show me potential. And so I guess a learning from that, to answer your question, is just having how important it is to have people surround you that uplift you. And I'm not talking, I mean, we all need cheerleaders, but we also need truth tellers.
Yeah.
We need people that are going to love us enough to say, I'm sorry, but this isn't you. This doesn't align with your values. And you're like, oh yeah, maybe not. Or saying, uh, this, John, I think this better aligns with your values. And in fact, Tommy, my brother Tommy, a pivotal moment, and I'm going back a
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
but a pivotal moment during college was I started in the music program for a semester, and I didn't really take classes because I was doing my general ed courses, but I started in music, then I went to business. And I think in my head, I thought that that was the route to go because I wanted to do a million things. So I thought, well, business is a good route. And I wanted to be respectable like my dad. And I had
Provider and
all these things. And then, but it wasn't, I started getting into economics and all these other things that I'm like, and financial things where I'm like, this is not it.
yeah.
And my brother Tommy
You were
called
born to
me.
be a creative, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he called me one day, and I had done some design on the side and posted it on Facebook without even thinking. And Tommy called me one day, and he's like, "Hey, you popped into my head, and I just was wondering, why are you in business?
Question mark?
What are you doing there?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "John, do you know how creative you are? Do you know how?" And he was referring to something I designed and posted, but also I'd been watching him as a designer my whole life. He had been doing Photoshop and Illustrator, all the Adobe things, and he taught me from like age 8. And so it was just cool. It's I love people that are around me that are truth tellers,
Yeah.
that aren't afraid to correct me or to say, to tell me when I might be in a wrong place.
Yeah.
or in an unhelpful place.
This is the essence of what I think when I say it's important to have a belonging place.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. Not like groups and gatherings, but people that help you to be able to fail forward,
Yeah.
right? Or to succeed temporarily
Yeah.
or long term, right? But it's the people who are like, um, and sometimes I find, I know in my nonprofit, my best friend and I, when we started, I always thought I was a dreamer and the like idea person, which is what ended up being him. I ended up being a lot of the heart part of it, but I ended up being many times the breaks. Like, hey, he would have all these dreams, and it was like, how do you find the way to say, I love you, I love your ideas, but maybe we need to break it down and do it. And being surrounded with you many times, I felt like that was some of the things that people did for you or for
Yeah.
Here, right?
Yeah.
Great dreamers, great big ideas, want to help a lot of people, don't have all the components, but we can find people that have it. And maybe that's critical feedback, maybe it's just feedback, but the ability to not feel squashed about something, but
Yeah.
also reconfigure and do that. And how did that feel?
Right.
As a person who was starting, maybe didn't even know if it was a nonprofit at the time, but starting a mission driven, there was some cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Differing opinions. And how did you use that same group of people, that belonging place to sort of help ground you in that?
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting you talking about this because, well, we had a conversation at the beginning that was very memorable for me. Um, as I was starting here and starting to post about my story and other stories, I remember you calling one day and you're like, John, I love what you're doing so much. And not but, and, um, and I would love to help advise in certain things where you would want somebody that's in the professional field doing this. You said it in a very nice way of like, hey, John, you don't know what you're doing. If I could help you where you don't know, that's not what you
Yeah.
said or meant necessarily, but I knew that you were extending a hand of help if we felt we needed that, which we did, and we do, and we're so grateful for your help. But during one of those early conversations, I remember talking about the dynamic between me and Justin, right? As we were leading, because we were both, it was a very like mutual thing, and learning to work together, right? It's because every partnership is like a
For
marriage,
sure.
right? You have to have those elements, and one of the things that you helped me to do was to understand that I needed to be the brake sometimes because I am a dreamer, but I had a similar experience as you as where like sometimes I had to be the brakes on Justin and sometimes he had to be the brakes on me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I had to understand that I had to be the brakes too,
Yeah.
rather than just always the gas. So that was a good moment that I've always remembered when you did talk about that, when you were first giving some very helpful and needed advice as we were starting.
Okay, so I'm going to bring our audience. Many
Yeah.
of them might be familiar with Here Brotherhood. Many of them may not. So you quit your job. You were doing murals. You are active on LinkedIn. We could do a whole podcast about that, right? Because I was also in that. There was a bunch of us in the Silicon Slopes, but also in Utah. And just like there was a kind of a resurgence or a surgence. I don't know if it's for people to talk about things besides jobs on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I consider us kind of like this, it's a large group of people, but I consider us kind of industry like disruptors in that, because there was a lot of people at the time that were like, LinkedIn is for jobs.
Right.
And
still
all of
are.
us were like, like your job is your life and your life is your job. And so if we can't talk about our lives and our jobs. So there was this,
all affects each other.
Yeah. And I guess I want to give some shout out where shout out is due. The platform was LinkedIn, but the people, there was this sort of need for people to be more than the thing that the platform originally was, right? You're swimming in that, you're feeling your feelings. We probably won't go into the whole thing about Here, but you start to feel that is the impetus for Here Brotherhood.
Well, there's a whole backstory, right? But speaking of LinkedIn, so we started telling our stories about mental health and just starting to try and break stigmas there by just sharing our stories.
Yeah.
My story, my partner Justin's story, and other partners and friends who were having their own stories. And giving credit where credit is due, there's the Paul Shins, the Nick Staggies, the Levi Lindsays, and so many others.
We Are Minds. Lots of,
Right.
yeah.
Like opened up a door for me and gave me the permission to do what I did
Yeah.
by sharing my story.
Also part of belonging.
Yes. Also, yes. And it's this
Connection invites connection.
yes.
Vulnerability invites vulnerability.
Yep.
I do it and it went okay. And so maybe I can do what they did.
Yep.
That permission giving. I love that. Yeah.
Exactly. And you see that there's not repercussions. Like they're losing their jobs because they started talking about mental health, which sounds silly now, but years ago it was like still a valid thing, and it still is in many areas and fields. So the permission that I got from those that went before me have allowed me to share my story and allow for others who have messaged me and said, "Thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like I can share mine now," or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. But what we noticed was that there wasn't much of that talk. You go to Facebook, TikTok, any other social platform, and there's over vulnerability. There's non-purposeful
Yeah.
vulnerability, right? Borderline venting in many places, and uh, the reason why Here Brotherhood has been able to take off and to gain a big audience quickly is because of the place that we did it. If we would have started anywhere else, it would have just been in the mix of things. But because we started on LinkedIn and we were talking about what we were talking about and breaking mental health stigmas for men, and talking about, in my partner's case, suicide or suicide attempts, or ADD, ADHD, things that you just didn't talk about normally
Yeah.
in that place. It has allowed for so many cool things to happen and a community to be built around vulnerability and around creating these spaces where men can come and feel like they belong,
Yeah.
like they are an important part of this
One of
community.
the reasons why I wanted you to come on here is I wanted to say public to you some public feedback. Like I wanted to reflect something to you that I found so inspiring and empowering. I think there's a big jump for people from I'm sharing my story and I'm vulnerable and I'm breaking a stigma to action. And I think you know this about me, especially we are at the very tail end when we're filming this of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month,
Hmm.
right? That as a therapist and in the trenches and in the field for the last over 16 years, I have a little bit of an issue with mental health awareness. I think we've had a lot of awareness over the years, and I
Sure.
think people are aware more than.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some work to do still for the stigma, but I
I'm
think
shocked every day how much
I.
still there, but yes.
But part of the problem is you can talk all day long about how bad it is that people, that CEOs in Silicon Slopes are committing suicide all the
Hmm.
time. You can tell your story and you can and it matters. I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter,
Yes, yes.
but the difference between doing that and then you and a very select group of men deciding like we need to do more. I've shared this before on a podcast, but my favorite Japanese word is kigatsuku, and the kanjis mean to ignite my spirit to awareness.
Hmm.
It's the closest word we have in English is like to take initiative, but it's the idea of I see the thing and I go and do it. The chairs
Hmm.
need to be put up. I didn't make the meal, but I ate the meal, so I'm going to do the dishes. Like there's a need that needs to be fulfilled. And if I don't do it, someone else is going to have to do it. So I'm going to do it, right? You're not a therapist. You're not a men's mental health for years. You're a dad. That's a dude that has your own problems. And you meet another guy. I mean, I'm simplifying it.
Right, right.
That's also a dad that has had his own problems that both have started businesses and been in things. And you say, I think there's something here.
Here, ha.
I
I see
think
what
there's
you did there.
something here that like we can do more than just create awareness.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so well, what's funny is it started with awareness. That's what it was. Uh, there were a few people in my life that were loved ones, that are loved ones, that were struggling at the same time, and it was around the same time that Twitch. Do you remember
Yeah, of
Twitch when
course.
he took
Of
his own
course.
life? Okay, not everybody knows
Devastating.
Twitch, right? But that all happened within like 24 hours, and I had already been feeling this like call, this push towards this work. And that for me was the moment where I remember talking to Kelly and saying like, okay, it's time. It's
It's
time to
time.
start acting.
Yeah.
And what I
Side note,
think,
you had put some goals. I learned this through the grapevine and through
oh
hearing.
yeah,
You had put some goals in a journal on the phone
yeah,
years before this. It's time.
yeah,
Like this, I think I want to point this out for our audience and people that, write it down. I'm a writer, but write it down. Write your ideas, dream your dreams. There's times and seasons when it can happen, but it's wild when, I mean, maybe you can tell this later, but when you go back and you look at the things that you wanted, but
it's
that's not
insane.
when you started it,
Right.
right? So here you are, and you're like, it's time.
Yeah.
Kylee, it's time. Justin, it's
I've been thinking
time.
about stuff for years.
Yeah.
In fact, for those that want to know, the
Yeah.
first iteration of a name was BRO, and it was an acronym for Brotherly Relief Organization,
Yeah.
which sounds like the Relief Society for Latter-day Saints, right? But the male version, right? But that's not the point. Was to be to offer relief, to offer
Yeah.
support to each other in a brotherly way, right? Anyway, so that's a fun little fact, but that was my concept for years, and it was on my goals, like have my first bro meeting, right?
Yeah.
Because I learned about men's groups years ago from like Art of Manliness blog, and how like you need to have a tribe and you need to have all these things, right?
Yeah.
So for years I'd been studying stuff. I'd been having my own fascination with like this adult male. Uh, what's the word I'm thinking of? Dynamic.
Yeah.
And realizing more so how complicated it is, making friends as an adult, in your 20s, 30s.
Toxic masculinity meets
Right.
vulnerability
Right.
meets.
Yes. Lots of taboo things that are becoming less taboo, right? So all of a sudden I've lost my train of thought.
So you're like, Kylee, it's time.
Yes. So told Kelly like it is time. I need to get moving on this. I don't know what it is. And what this moment taught me is that God uses what we know to inspire us to action. So in this instance, I'd been wanting to start an apparel company for a long time.
Yeah.
I'd wanted to get into the trenches there, into e-commerce. And so I thought, okay, why not use this as an opportunity to spread awareness? And where this came from was me going to certain networking events as an entrepreneur and saying, I hate being here, and I wish I had other people that were like wearing something that I knew that they were a safe place, or like that I could go and be like, I don't belong here, or like.
Do you know what's so interesting about that? I'm just gonna take a pause really quick.
Yes.
So this is a little shout out to my friend Davis Smith, who is was the co-founder CEO of Cotopaxi.
Amazing. One of my great inspirations.
The crazy thing is, when I travel abroad, which I travel a lot, I wear a lot of Cotopaxi gear, and when I see people in the wild in Cotopaxi gear, they're my people. Like there's nothing. I know that about them. They are doing this brand. They pay more money because they know what Cotopaxi is about. There is something about you're in my tribe.
Yes.
Across I mean, I was in Japan. I was waiting for a train, and I don't know how popular Cotopaxi is in Japan, but there was this guy there, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he's like, "Great stuff, right?" And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, love it. Like, didn't know him from Adam, didn't have any other conversation. So there is something to be said about there's this random networking thing. And I see that you have this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, and that's where it started, was saying, okay, I want to learn this, and it's a way for me to continue to spread awareness in a very like wearing a billboard kind of a way.
Yeah.
And because I wanted somebody to be doing that for me, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, okay, no, I guess that means I should
I'll
be doing
build the well.
I guess I'll build the well. I'll build my own party here. And so that's what we started with is, and I would post it. I posted a selfie before a conference one day after we had launched. And I said, hey, if somebody's wearing this shirt, you know that you can talk to them, and you can go and you don't have to, you can get all of the peacocking away. You can get all of your accolades behind you, and you can just be here and I'll listen to you.
Pull the curtain.
And that's where it started was, I want you to know, if I'm wearing this,
I'm safe.
This means that I'm a safe place. This means you can come talk to me and I'll just listen. And so that's where it started. Knowing full well.
Start something that you know,
Yes.
or start something that matters wherever you are.
Sure. or somewhere where you want to learn.
This concept is so seemingly so simple.
Yeah.
But it's the thing that causes most people to not do the thing.
Well, because you think,
They just
I don't even know where to
it's
start.
overwhelming. It's So I want to give you credit. You, Justin, Mike, I'm not sure everybody knew what to do, but you have figured out how to get people who do on the train. But even in the initial stages, like, I just want to feed that back to you, that it's like, you can always find excuses why not to do something, or that you're not good enough at something, or that someone could do it better, or what do I have to offer? And then the opposite is true.
Yeah.
This is what I have to offer. This is where I can start. So you start with the apparel.
Well, that's why it took so long. I mean, I was sitting on this for years, not knowing fully what the concept would be, but I knew there would be gatherings, and I knew there would be like maybe retreats. But the whole time it's like, well, who am I? You know, a big part of it was like the physical too. Like, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I have to have like this ripped body in order to lead men, in order for them to listen to me. I need to be well spoken. I need to be a public speaker. I need to be all these things, and which is what holds all of us up all the time with anything we want to do moving forward. We think, oh, well, I'm not this yet, and so I can't do that. Yeah. Okay, if you're want to be a doctor, yes, that's true. There are very few things though where that is true.
Yeah.
And the rest of it in entrepreneurship, just go for it. Just get started. And
also I want to say, if you stand in your truth, the world conspires for your good. Or I would say the spirit or God, right? Like, if you stand in your truth, I mean, we have literally, I would just say to anybody who's listening to this podcast, go to all the things, and we will link them below. There's a website, there's an app, there's a podcast, there's retreats. I mean, there's just numerous things, you guys. The community that you've created, the amount of people, the ripple effect, right? Like, stand in your truth, right? You don't have to know it all. You just have to know enough to say, this is where we're going to start.
Yeah.
I often say on this podcast, nobody wants to build the train, but once the train is built, everybody wants to ride it.
Right.
And I find it really fascinating on the people who decide we're going to build the train, because it is not an easy task over the last 2 years as we talked really and different things and what comes up and things you don't even know they're going to come up, right? I think you would say, and I would say, it's a worthy cause, but it's hard, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So you guys, you stand in your truth. Yeah. You do some apparel. We're going to skip through some of the stuff that's really important. Sorry. Go look up here.
Yes.
Look up Justin and how he came about the oath. The oath is an integral part about it. How do you move from apparel to all the other things that you're doing?
Meeting our partner, Mike.
Okay.
Who he was there from the very beginning, like a month later than Justin and I, basically, or a few months later. And he had already been doing men's retreats.
Yeah.
His wife.
Breath work, right?
Yeah, breath work, meditation, yoga, all that. And
shout out to Erin.
Yes, shout out to her. Which
and
is
Mike.
And Mike. But it's funny. I used to think that was like hippie stuff. And I didn't know how it aligned with my faith, and I didn't, with
still hippie, but we love it, right?
Right. Yes, they were onto something in some ways, not in every way, but in some ways they were onto something because they were open and curious, and so they were able to find really good stuff and also not really good stuff. Yeah. So we jumped from there. We kept posting on LinkedIn, posting, realizing the need for a community. We knew we wanted a central place. We didn't know if that was like Facebook groups or Volley. Or whatever it was, but we realized, there's this thing called Mighty Networks, and you can create your own network on it, basically your own social platform and community there. So we chose that, and since then the app has done well, and on there's about 7,000 members from every continent besides Antarctica, but that doesn't really count, right? Every habitable continent, and more than 50 countries, and there's a lot of just a lot of really cool things that have happened since. But the app was kind of, we knew we wanted a central place, and when Mike joined, we knew we wanted to do retreats. I thought that was going to be more down the road, but Mike already came ready to go, right?
This is that conspire for your good, right?
You start
hook
something.
Up your train to somebody else's train.
That's exactly it.
Let me pause for a second because, and this is not to make you feel bad or anybody feel bad, but this is going to prove a point.
Oh no.
Do you have a nonprofit degree, or do you have? Okay. Do you have a business degree?
Communications, advertising.
Did you yourself know how to make or build an app?
No.
Okay. All I'm saying is this: did you find the people?
Yes.
And I guess part of what I want to do in these podcasts is I don't want people to hear you or my friends that come and talk about their awesome things
Right,
and
right.
to be like, oh, I can't be like them. There's a fear that I have
Oh
that when I
gosh.
showcase these awesome people and what they're doing and they're becoming, that people are like, but I can't do that. And so I would just want to pause and say to anybody who's listening, like, you didn't have lots of the pieces that you needed to make the thing go, right?
Nope.
But
And I
you,
still don't.
but,
But people keep
but
showing
you
up.
didn't have a lack of like, I'm not going to do it because I don't have it. You had a perseverance. It seems
Yeah.
like, I don't want to name it for you. Maybe you can tell me what it was, but it seemed like there was well, I'll just find the person that can.
Yeah.
Or they will find me.
Yeah.
Like more than not, lots of people have come to you guys and said, this is what I have to offer.
Yes.
Please let me help in this cause.
So many.
Please let me serve where I can, right? And
Yes.
so you're building this great, for the sake of this podcast, because it's true, a really great community, a really great belonging place where you're synergizing people's talents and energy. But you
So many.
and Justin and even Mike to some degree, right, didn't have it all the pieces, right?
No, absolutely not. And I'm all
And then Jason comes in and he
right.
has business and he can do a
Yes.
deck. And I mean, I look at what you guys do, and this is what makes me feel so passionately about just start where you are.
Yes.
And if you love it, do it and do it well. I mean, don't be dumb about it and don't do harm.
Yeah, yeah.
But and when you shine and you stand in your truth, it is a clarion call to other people, right? I guess my question I want to ask you is, I imagine there was a lot of growth. There has been a lot of growth. Could you share with us a few insights about the growth over the last couple of years, starting something and then what happened inside of you?
Yeah. So I've always had confidence issues, right? And it was because I was a lot of for big chunk of it is because I wasn't doing.
Mm.
Somebody can have the whole encyclopedia and every book memorized, and they won't be confident
I can have all the ideas on
because
my
they haven't
notes on
done
my phone.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I guess one of the many learnings is that confidence comes from doing and becoming. And yes, there's part of that comes from what I believe to be my divine worth, right? There's always that, and that never changes. That knowing that I am a child of God and that I am infinitely loved. All of those things are a good foundation, but when we forget those things, we rely on other things, right?
Yeah.
But I think a big part of confidence is doing, and even when I'm failing, I feel so good and so confident because I'm just trying. Like if
I call that feeling forward. There's just something really awesome about
yes,
feeling forward, right?
yes,
Like
yes.
the only way I can feel forward is because I'm trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I mean, even financially, it's like until things really work out for all of us to be full time, which I think will come on the horizon soon. But my confidence is based off of the impact that I'm having because of the work that I'm doing, and who I'm becoming, and all those things. And I think that's such an important. I'm so grateful for that learning and for the people that have helped buoy me up until I could understand that for myself.
Okay, so self-confidence.
Yeah.
Anything else in the
Oh,
growth?
I
I
mean,
mean, there's
I
lots.
honestly, I could write
Anything
a
else you
whole,
want? A book, probably,
I could
right?
write a whole book, and
Maybe you should.
well, I may have a few
Hey,
outlines, and I may
right?
have a publisher that's already talking. No,
Okay.
I won't announce anything yet. No,
Yeah.
no, nothing has happened.
Yeah.
But
Maybe one more that you can pull out.
yeah.
That you, in your growing and stretching, something that you have.
So this is a learning that has become very sacred to me and very powerful in my life, which is the power of compassion. We've been faced with so many moments of where we've had the opportunity to choose a direction for somebody, if that makes sense, or decide somebody's fate. And what I mean by that is if they belong or not. Since we're talking about belonging, we've had an opportunity to say, do you fit in or not? And with that, and what I mean by that is, are you going to abide by and
safe?
are you safe?
Are you
Are you going to be a
toxic? Are
safe?
you? Yeah.
Yes. And are you going to be accountable for your actions? And with a lot of that has come this really difficult thing of essentially communicating that you don't belong. which is the hardest thing for me, but it has actually helped me to learn compassion. And when I say compassion, I don't just mean like feeling love for somebody. I've learned that there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
There's empathy, which is a counterfeit of sympathy, and sympathy is the little brother or sister of compassion. Compassion on the spectrum is what I think of when I think Jesus. Jesus didn't have empathy. He didn't have sympathy. He had compassion. And I thought that I was a compassionate person before, but I was really just either empathetic or sympathetic.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is that in order to have compassion for somebody, you have to love them when they are absolutely unlovable, when they have threatened to sue you, when they have threatened to destroy your life, when they have threatened to do all of these things, and you still have the capacity to feel love for them.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest learning moments of my life. It's almost like I dug a deeper well, and that I didn't know I could dig deeper. I'm not saying I had this full capacity of love.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where you
The
like
growth capacity.
you
Yeah.
didn't realize that you were capable of until you're in it, right? Until
Yeah.
you're digging and you're like, I feel so much compassion for this person. I should be hating this person. And compassion too is when you are willing to go to the depths for them. Sympathy says, empathy says, let's
I
see. Let
feel
me
I
see.
have experienced what you've experienced is empathy.
Empathy
Sympathy.
is like pity. Empathy is like, I'm
Sympathy.
so sorry. Sympathy is saying, I feel for you. I'm so sorry. And compassion is, I am in this with you with the most full amount of love I can possibly have. So compassion has action to it, whereas sympathy is beautiful. Sympathy is a beautiful emotion, but compassion is an action.
You know, it's interesting when you say this. The opposite part of this is also true. And I think a lot of people, I would be interested in hearing this side of this for you. I think we live in a world sometimes that has swung so far to like everybody should be included in everything.
Right.
So the same could be said about you are taking away the safety or you are breaking boundaries in our community. And I'm going to love you enough to tell you, there's not a place for you here. Now, a lot of people think when people are cut out or when you let go or you hold boundaries that you're a terrible person. I like when you have an organization like you have there sometimes foxes get in the chicken coop.
Yep.
And hopefully people get that analogy. Like we love the foxes and we love the
They're
chickens, but they don't go
dressed as
they
chickens.
don't go together, right?
Yeah.
So when a fox gets in there, and we say this is the place that we've created, I imagine there's also been some growth in that capacity.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of love.
Especially for a past people pleaser who
Yeah, it's a little bit like
wants everybody to belong, who wants to make everybody
yeah,
feel
I
like
don't
a
want to ever
million
make you
bucks.
feel like you're on the out of that.
Right.
I think it's a little bit like when somebody is in a job and you've given them every opportunity to do
Yes.
well, but it's not the right seat for them on the bus. And part of the love, it's hard, it's critical feedback that you're going to say to that person is, this isn't the right place for you. There's lots of other places, but this isn't it. And sometimes if you've been on the other side of that, been the one fired, there's a lot of stories of people that say that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't on the right bus, even let alone the seat, and I went and found something else, right?
And sometimes they might not belong yet.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned is everything you're saying. A lot of that has to do with not necessarily them not belonging, as much as they have chosen not to belong.
But they have work to do before they
Yes.
can be in this
In
tribe.
this, yes.
Yeah.
And but there's also a I want you to belong, but you're not willing to abide by certain standards that are very important to us. And so if you don't if you're doing that, you're choosing not to belong. It's not that we're saying you don't belong. It's if you choose to belong, we want you here. But if you're
Yeah.
not going to abide, then you don't belong.
You've kind of
I
you've
still
kind of-
love you and I still want the best for you, but this is not a place where you do belong
yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
You can, but
Yeah.
you may not belong yet.
Part of building connections, one-on-one experiences, group experiences, driving together, feeling safe is the importance of those boundaries and holding being able to say everybody isn't in this. If everybody is in this, I mean, for the very reason of you guys are really focusing on
Yeah.
men's mental health. It doesn't mean you don't care about women. It doesn't mean
Right.
women aren't important to men, right? But we're saying we're going to put our energy here, and there's an importance,
Yes.
for that. This might get a little technical as a therapist, but one of the things I found really interesting with your guys's that kind of goes into like when you create wells and when you create belonging places and compassionate places and places where people can open their hearts and vent, and when you create a brotherhood that says we love you and we've got your back, that when people are drowning in that, there's like this need for everybody to kind of come and rescue. And we found at Here that was its own complication, right?
That was a
And
hard learning for
yeah.
me.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so without going into too much
Please
detail,
don't.
but there, yeah,
But yes,
there
broadly.
there was an experience where there was a rescue mission. It was from the app to in person.
Yeah.
It was a rescue mission, like police were involved. And we realized after the fact, after talking to a brilliant therapist and friend, who's also an advisor for Here Brotherhood, who let us know that what we did was not helpful, and it was actually disabling them to do the same thing, to continue rescue missions instead of becoming self-reliant. And what I learned was that when somebody's drowning in an ice lake, a lake covered with ice, when they fall in, the worst thing to do is to jump in, because then both of you are drowning because you can't breathe because the water's so cold. But what you can do is throw them a rope, and they have to do it themselves, because also they'll go into shock too. A lot of times people go into shock, right? They'll go into shock, and then they'll pull them down with them. And so then you have two fatalities instead of just one, if it goes that way. The better thing is go get a rope or a branch is what I meant. A rope, and allow them to pull themselves out. They have to do the kicking. They have to kick themselves out. And giving them that opportunity to come out. And yes, we'll give them tools.
Yeah.
We'll give them opportunities for growth, but they have to decide that they don't want to drown. And that was a huge learning for us.
Standing on the shore and throwing the rope or standing on the boat
is safer for everybody.
Safer for everybody and harder.
Yeah.
Because when we see people in pain, we want to jump in, right? Yeah. I ask you to share the story because on a bigger, broader, any kind of groups, connections, friends, we are usually given an opportunity, fortunately or unfortunately, where we have to make choices about our own self and our own self-care and filling our own buckets versus other people. We surround ourselves, a lot of my friends surround themselves with their people. They love people. They want to put into people. They want to blow into people. That both sides is super important, right? And when you have a cause that says, hey, men, what you say matters and we want you to be vulnerable, there also has to be the side of, and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of your family and your marriage and your job place, and make sure that you're getting the tools that you need. And yes, we want you to connect, and yes, we want you to mentor, but we can't give from an empty place, and we don't want you jumping in. Watching you guys kind of shift around and figure new ways to do things has been pretty remarkable. To see you guys in a really hard, I think, jump into a really hard situation with the greatest of hearts to say like, okay, maybe we should do this differently, or maybe we should do that differently. I'm so grateful that you have been willing to do it, in your words, even if it's messy. It's a worthy tribe. It's a worthy belonging place. It's only getting better and better as it goes, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to share about Here before we close that part up?
Oh gosh.
First of all, I want to make a shout out to your actual apparel. So those of you watching visually, we've got some apparel going on. And where can people buy that?
Yeah, at hearbros.com.
And I just want to say, you don't have to be a bro to buy the gear.
Yes, it's true. And we're going to release stuff that doesn't say Brotherhood on it, because we're going to start building up for prepping for the launch of the Here Sisterhood, which will be this year. So
yeah. Okay, so they have an app, they have a website, they have a podcast.
The Here Brotherhood app, the Here Brotherhood podcast. the what am I missing? Yeah, follow us on social media.
Yeah.
We post the most on LinkedIn, sometimes on Instagram, but
All your links are going to be in the show
yeah,
notes. So,
yeah. So I talk a lot about it on my personal page on LinkedIn and Instagram, as well as on our group or our company page, I guess, on
and depending on when this
LinkedIn.
airs, there's a trip coming up. Is it full? Hawaii's full or no?
No, no,
So there's maybe
we
some
still have
spots. There's
spaces.
ongoing retreats.
There's a lot of retreats coming up.
Yeah, good people doing good things. I guess I also want to, as an advisory board member, and because this is such a belonging place. I mean, we could just talk about here, but
Yeah,
I want to say to anybody who's hearing and listening, if you're standing in um, your what you have to offer is in line with here, like reach out.
yeah,
They're looking for people to help in all kinds of capacities, right?
yeah.
And I'm excited for some of the future stuff that's coming out for
Yeah,
that. So
and we have a Here Foundation now, which a big part of our mission there is to is accessibility to mental health and wellness tools, social wellness tools, and just accessibility, including certain sponsorships and scholarships for retreats if somebody can't afford it. We keep them very affordable anyway, but
yeah,
for those that can't afford it or those that are overseas that may not be able to afford, there's so many things we're going to do with foundation, but um, yeah, there's a lot of things coming up. A few retreats in one in Hawaii in July, and then I'm doing one in Rexburg. Which have I told you about this?
no,
I'm just going to tell you real
yeah,
fast because you're my friend.
yeah.
I'm doing my first solo retreat
Okay.
um, coming up in Rexburg. I'm doing it with friends and family first, just to test the waters and to. It feels more comfortable to do that than to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, come pay some money." And I don't know if I'm good at this yet. I could be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to feel more comfortable doing that without Mike's help.
Yeah.
And he's thrilled to not have to be the only one now,
Yeah.
right? So that's exciting. So that's in Rexburg coming up in a couple weeks. Then Hawaii, and then Mexico City with Scott Porter. We're doing a
Yeah.
joint retreat
Shout out to
there.
Scott. We love him.
That's in October, and then either September or November. I think September for now. We have our big Zion's retreat, which we did that last year, and that's our option where it's like our big family reunion for the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to be.
I'm excited.
So we're excited. And that's near Zion's National Park in southern Utah. So.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this and why I wanted to have you here, and I think I'm an advisory board member, and I want to say to our audience is that there's a lot of organizations for men. There's a lot of mental health things to go to. I guess I just want to say I'm really grateful for some our advisory board has so much depth and so much experience, and I would forget people, so I'm not going to shout everybody out, but you guys have collected some stellar pillars in this area and have surrounded yourself with a lot of good truth evidence-based stuff. So if there's anybody out there who's worried about like what we're talking about or who we're talking about, I just want to say that it does matter that you do something um, that you do something the smart way, that you do it the ethical way, that you do it the effective way, that you can be messy and you can figure it out, but when you're working with people that you have really good people. And so I just want to say that, and I want to shout out the advisory board who are some incredible men.
I love these people so much. And just speaking to that point real
Yeah.
fast, for any entrepreneur listening and wanting to build a company, one of the things that I thought companies did years down the line was build an advisory board. But I got advice from several people at the beginning saying, no, you need to do an advisory board first. And I'm like, well, I thought that was once you're like an established
Well,
company.
they advise you
And
for
they're like, well,
yourself.
no, that's how you become that successful company is by having an advisory board. And I thought, well, we can just have advisors. You've been advising me from the beginning, and other really close friends and confidants that have been amazing. Which I guess now they're in an official capacity,
Yeah.
um, which I'm so grateful for. And I could talk for hours on every single person on the advisory board because every single one of them, I love them so dearly and respect them so dearly. And there's so many moments, and I'll shout out Clay Olson
Yeah.
because
Love play.
he's become a dear friend and just I love him so much.
Yeah.
I've looked up
A
to
lot of
him
entrepreneur
for like
experience,
10
a lot of mental
years.
health experience. Yeah.
And I have to pinch myself sometimes that I get to be alongside him. And I just am so grateful for these people. So
Love,
anyway,
love that. Okay. I'm going to read you a quote.
okay,
And
let's
this
hear it.
quote is from our dear Brene Brown. She says this.
Queen Brene.
I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from relationship.
Ooh.
I would love your thoughts about that.
Okay, can I counter that?
Sure.
Not counter. Can I respond with another quote?
Sure.
Because I was listening to this morning. Let me find it. And I sent it to Mike.
Okay.
For a number of reasons, but hold on, let me find it. I was listening to a talk from a man named Garrett Gong,
Okay.
who's one of the top church leaders for my church, Elder Gong. He said, "When trials come, often what we most want is for someone to listen and be with us. In the moment, cliche answers can be unhelpful, however comforting their intent. Sometimes we yearn for someone who will grieve, ache, and weep with us. Let us express pain, frustration, sometimes even anger, and acknowledge with us there are things we do not know." It reminded me of that quote just because this idea of the importance of just sitting with people, to feel that belonging. And I think sometimes there's a scripture of mourn with those that mourn and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. I think in our human minds, we read that fix the problems of those that mourn and tell those that need comfort that they need to shove their feelings down. People read the verses that way without thinking it.
Yeah.
Instead, or
Or
solving
take your pain elsewhere.
yes, or just go solve your problems. Just stop being depressed. Just stop being sad. Right. But what the scripture actually says, and going to this quote and to Brené's, is just sit with them. If you need to cry with them, cry with them. You're not there to solve their problem. You're not there to do anything other than to just sit with them. And I think that is such an important part of belonging, and an important part of the foundation for belonging is knowing that there's somebody there, like Brene says, that's just going to sit there with them and listen and love them as they are, in the messy place that they are.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
is there somebody in your life that does that for you?
That does which part?
All of that.
Yeah, I have lots of people.
You want to share one?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I feel like it's too obvious to say Tommy, who's recording this podcast, or you, who's also.
You can pick whoever you want.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah.
Okay. So who comes to mind? And Kelly's one of them. My wife, of course. But I'm gonna do the non-cliche answers right now, and just I'm gonna go with Mike.
Okay.
My partner.
Mike Allen. Okay.
Yeah. He is an incredible human being, and has become one of my closest human beings. And he is somebody that you can tell him all of the things, all your dirty secrets, all of you at your worst, and he'll just love you, and he'll just sit with you. And he doesn't always, when we're in a business setting, there is a lot of back and forth of solving problems, right?
Yeah.
But when we switch that off, he's just there to hold space. And he's taught me that. He's taught me the importance of just holding space.
Dang.
Yeah, which means sometimes just sitting with him. You don't have to say anything. You can just hold space for him. You don't have to give them advice.
In the very essence of in the breath work.
Yeah.
In the presence of the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. When I think of somebody who mourns with those that mourn, I have seen him do that with every emotion. He is joyful when I have something happy happen. He has cried with me. We've cried together. We have rejoiced together. And I love him so much.
I love that. Thank you.
I feel like I belong
Mike.
with him.
There's something pretty powerful when you talk about that you feel that, but then you also go and problem solve. Can I show you something? And those of you who are watching, so if we have this on box water, whatever it is, and this is the problem. If I hand it to you, hold it, then you are the problem. You have the problem, right? If I take this and I put it out here, then you and I can look at the problem and we can solve it together.
Yeah.
But you're not the problem, right? This, to me, this is part of what it means to be connected to somebody, is that they don't see you as the problem or the thing. They see you as capable, they see you, but they also externalize whatever it is, right, that you're trying to do. And we're a we are going to, we can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And as long as we work on us, because you work with a bunch of people who have lots of big personalities and lots of different fields and lots of different things, and as long as we are outside of ourselves, or like, this is the cause, this is the well that we've built and how we maintain it, this is the tribe, right? As long as we can take care of ourselves, then we can look at the other thing outside of us, and we can problem solve it, or we can bring in people, contractors, right, to fix the well or whatever it is. And I think this model, I'm hoping that this model will give other people who are listening permission to start to build their own well, right? Whatever it is that is that you feel called to do, or that you feel like that you can paint your corner of the world. And that, it does end up being lots of moving pieces and lots of complicated, but when we really barrel it down, right, it's that I stand in my truth, and that I surround people who also love me, and that I keep going, and I fail and I keep going. And is there anything you would add to that?
Well, so you take me to this. My friend Bobby Macy, who has been a personal advisor from the beginning of this entrepreneurship journey. He texted me earlier, so I'm thinking of him.
Yeah.
And we did at the beginning of Here Brotherhood. I remember I did an event, and it was a cold plunge, and I couldn't believe how many people showed up.
Yeah.
And I was so amazed, and I was so grateful. But one of the things he came up, and this isn't like to boast or anything, this is just going off of the point.
Yeah.
He came up to me, he said, "John, I'm not here to cold plunge. I'm here because of you."
Yeah.
And that has stuck with me so much, because I always think, and this is the imposter part of me. And I think all of us, where I'm like, why would people want to show up for me? Like, what value am I adding to their lives, other than, I'll sit with you and I'll love you and I'll hug you, like,
but I'm not
but I'm not giving that,
this,
right? Like, I'm
guru, or
right. And so that was such a, I don't think he realizes how powerful that was for me, to know that people were showing up because of, they were there to plunge, sure. But the way that he said it, I still don't know if I believe it, but I believe it because he said it, right?
Yeah.
I want to believe him.
You can see yourself through his eyes.
Yeah. And that's me too. I go to things because I want to support somebody, or because I believe in them and I believe in what they're doing. Right. But going back to what we're talking about, which is, I'm forgetting how I linked this.
I was talking about building wells and bringing people in, and the importance of like that process of like, that it's hard but also easy at its basic core, right?
Yeah. I can't remember why I brought that story
you're
up.
Fine. No, it was perfect.
But I loved that I think it was just a good reminder.
It's not even about the thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's about, if I can create spaces where people feel connected to me, we can do just about anything, because it's that connection, right? Interesting that you say that. As a therapist, they say, the statistics, it might have changed, but 80% of therapeutic success is in your alliance with your therapist.
Is in your alliance?
Alliance, meaning how you feel that they believe in you or trust in you. 10% is in their skill set. That's so low that more than people think. And 10% is in what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So like if there's war, or if you have COVID or whatever, 80% of it is how you feel seen by the person who's sitting there. I think that is also true outside of the therapeutic office. I think that's how we feel by our friends or our family or people, is like, I feel connected to you. You do other things and I show up for other things, but this is the thing that brings us to the wells, right?
Yes.
It might be the well. Maybe I came initially because that was a pretty shiny thing, but I stay, or I keep coming back because of the connections that I made, right?
And that's the point that I was trying to make. I'm remembering. it's all connecting again, but just how, he showed up to that cold plunge event, right? Um, there were plenty of other opportunities, and I think that's the point of what I'm getting at is that I that helped me learn in that moment that when I am stepping into becoming,
Yeah.
and as I'm stepping more into who I am and into the truth that I feel is truth, into my calling, into who I'm supposed to be becoming, those people show up. You're attracting those people. So I told the story to reiterate
Yeah.
your point, which is that when we start to step into who we truly are, people just show up.
Yeah.
And I've seen that so much. I mean, how many times just me being silly, goofy, or being just speaking truth and telling my stories, it all of a sudden brings people in that never would have appeared in my life.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love everything you're talking
I
about.
have one more question for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh.
My last question is this. So we talked a little bit about the growth and learning. We only hit the surface, but
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you shared some things that you've learned in the last 2 years. I'm a big, big believer in beginning with the end in mind. It's one of Stephen Covey's highly effective habits, right? Um, what is it that maybe you hope to see? This isn't about here, this is about you. In the next 2 years, if you have some broad goals, and you don't even have to share those if you want, but what do you think, or what do you want? What seeds do you want to plant right now
Mm-hmm.
that are going to grow in 2 years
Hmm.
or 5 years?
Okay, so I know you said it's not necessarily about here, but
It can be about here.
but
Sorry,
the hard
it can be
thing,
about whatever.
yes, yes, the hard thing for me is a lot of people always try and separate me from
Yes.
here, and I'm like, no, it's so much who I am,
Yeah.
and maybe that's
That's
a bad
okay.
thing that I'm so tied to it, um, but it's become a mission for me, and that's why. But so let me tell you, I
Yeah.
guess where we're going.
Yeah.
And this is what lights my fire. This is what gets me going. We're already going these directions, but uh, one of them is chapters, local chapters. One thing that we believe strongly in is training trainers who train trainers,
Yeah.
and
Because you guys can't be
we
everywhere.
can't.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to build a global brotherhood, that's part of our mission is to build a global brotherhood of support and growth through wellness practices um, and transformational experiences. We just updated that, so I'm like trying to get it down. But part of that is we want to be able to do what we've done in Utah, Idaho,
Arizona.
Arizona, and translate that to the whole world. And we
Yeah.
have people already willing, ready, but they need certain skill sets that Mike has shown us and that others have shown us. And so I'm kind of guinea pig one right now
Yeah.
in learning. I went to this big training last week for experiential experiences, and I'm learning
Learn the skills, apply. Yeah.
skills to be able to do these men's retreats and to have local chapters. So that lights my fire. Why? Because let me cast vision.
Yeah.
Let me just show you where I am in my head. I'm seeing people in South Africa. I'm seeing people in India. I'm seeing people in the Philippines. I'm seeing people in Argentina, Venezuela. I'm seeing people in
Costa
Florida. I'm
Rica.
seeing people all over the world. And these people are already there on our app, in our community. And I'm seeing them becoming the men that they need to become, that they want to become, stripping away stuff to get to that David statue. I'm
Yeah.
referring to
Yeah.
that, by the way. Stripping things away, becoming the husband, father, community member that they want to be, the leader that they've always known that they could be.
And it's inside them.
And then that's inside them
Yeah.
that they just need to strip away the things. And then what happens? They do that in their own communities, and they're building up men in their communities, which are building up men in their own community. And then it's just this domino effect. And that just lights my fire because I feel like it's a way to take over the world in a good way.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that just can't go to the whole world through the internet.
Yeah.
There's certain experiences that you have to have in person, and that's a lot of what we do. And so I can't wait to see the day when we have somebody in all those places, and they're leading their own Here chapters and communities in helping men to experience growth, and then their communities become better for it. So that's what lights my fire. So there's that, and that's part of the foundation, the Here Foundation. And then there's wellness clinics and what we're doing on our app, which is, and then retreats.
Yeah.
Retreats are always, you said that we shift a lot, right? We've changed directions in many ways. Retreats have always felt in our purpose. We've never left that feeling like, should we be doing this? It's always like, this is the work. This is what we're supposed to be doing. So retreats, we're going to continue to do those. I love those every single time. They're always impactful. And then we're going to be doing wellness centers or wellness. We don't know what to call them yet, but there will be centers for men to go and get resources, and for women.
Yeah. Combining kind of the loves, the cold plunge with the mental health, with the other things.
Right? And a bunch of other things. Yeah. Yes. So we're going to be going heavy into that here soon, but that's on the horizon. But more than anything, coming back to just me.
Yeah. Please.
To answer the question, because I don't want it to just be about my career, and that I have this really strong desire to be a really good dad. And I am a good dad. I want to be a legendary dad, and I want to be a legendary husband, and I want to be legendary for a legendary friend for those that need me. And so I am really hoping that all those things that I just said and the process that that's going to bring into my life,
the refining, right,
will allow for those things to happen in my personal life as well, and be the provider that I truly want to be for my family. And so that's where it all comes to, is becoming the man that I want to be. I'm very happy with where I am, but I recognize that there's so much more to do. And I want to keep peeling back the layers, to steal from Michelangelo, who sculpted David. And he talked about it was him subtracting. It was him getting rid of the things that didn't belong. And that's how he got to David. And that's how I feel, is that this is the work that we're in it's not a game of addition. It's a game of subtraction, of getting rid of the things that don't serve us, and then continuing to be who we truly are.
I love that.
And that's where I want to get to.
I love that. And kind of in summary, I want to just bring it back together and say, and I think you're an extraordinary person, but I'm going to say, when an ordinary person stands in their purpose and shines a clarion call and meets other people who share that purpose, and they create a well or a belonging place that invites other people to connect or tribe, miracles happen. Mm-hmm. And and I just want to say, that truth to me changes the world. Not extraordinary people who have a lot of money, who have a lot of experience and have a lot of degrees, that you see them in their arrival, but not in their becoming. Not to say that those people aren't amazing, right? But most of us see them in their arrival, at the end of all that they've done, right? But that there's such a power in your becoming and where you start and where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that I did want to just add one more thing.
Yeah,
with
please.
The miracles.
Yeah.
I would be remiss to not talk about the miracles. Yeah. And to not give credit to God. In this whole process, talking about one more thing I've learned, it's that all of these modalities, all of these things, breath work and cold plunges and therapy and experiential therapy, all of these things are really great things. But, when done in the context of the true source of healing, which I believe to be God, when those are in tandem together, that's where true and lasting healing happens. And I tried to do it out of that context, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're Band-Aids until it's met with the correct source of healing, which is God. And every single good thing in my life is because of that. Every single good thing that's happened with Here Brotherhood, with my mural business, with my marriage and my children, every single time, it's because God was present and he was doing his work, and he was allowing me to keep trying and to keep doing things and just blessing my life with difficult things and with really beautiful things. And every step of the way, meeting Justin, meeting you, meeting Mike, the whole process of this whole thing, meeting Jason, him messaging us, just every moment
God's weaving
that's
a
critical.
tapestry, right?
God is doing his work behind the scenes and sometimes very in the center stage. And I just am so grateful, and I have to acknowledge that because I haven't talked enough about it in this podcast. But I just have to say that
Yeah.
all the good things are because God knows I need a lot of help,
Yeah.
and so He helps me. He
Well,
sends amazing people my way.
I know you're not my actual brother, but we call each other brother
Oh
and
yeah,
sister. I just want to say to you, brother, that I love you. And I'm really proud of your messy becoming. It's the most beautiful. And I wish you the best. And thank you for coming on the
thank you.
Belonging Place.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.